America, every 50 whatever years or whatever, it's this new architect. They tear down all the history and then they start all over again. Like, I'm from Philly. I went home. My whole neighborhood is gone. It's all gentrified. There's nothing there that looked like when I grew up there. It's just a whole nother place. The only thing is that they changed the, because I grew up in the projects, it's a park. When I was a kid, our project was called Hawthorne. And Martin Luther King came there and spoke, so they changed the name to King. So when they tore him down, because they had been threatening for years that they was going to tear him down. So, after I became an adult, they were still there, and I was going back and forth. And they finally tore him down. And then when I went back to visit my neighbors, they moved across the street. So I was like, and then we had this recreation center. It was this round building in the middle of the four buildings. So I said, I thought they would keep the center because Martin Luther King was there and they had a plaque, commemorating him, saying that he was there, whatever. They turned the whole place into a park. So there's nothing there. It's not. I can't I couldn't take you and say,
this is where this is where this happened.
The whole block, the whole 4 blocks is gone. It's just gone. It's like.
Welcome to the Artistry Creates the World. I am with Beau McCall.
Beau McCall.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Fire. I'm gonna start. This young man shocked my soul when him and Solio were in Cuba, and I didn't know they were there. And they were just pure fire. I forget the event. It was an event with all these people out there, and I saw them from afar, and I just walked. I was like, whoa, what, yo, that's y'all. But your work. Talk about the buttons. I don't know how I should introduce it. The button line, the idea, the triple T-shirt. Is that the triple T-shirt? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
And he has a triple T-shirt that originated from Jerry Gant's work.
Yeah, this was Jerry Gant's. So this is my Jerry Gant remix.
Fire.
So I'm gonna take you from the journey from the beginning with the with my creativity. As a kid, I always been creative. I was never good with a paintbrush or drawing or whatever. I always been crafty. So when I was a little kid, we would go to the recreation center, and I learned all these crafts and day camps. I learned all these different crafts. I learned how to weave. I learned how to macrame, tie dye, paper mache, these crepe paper flowers. Every couple weeks, I would get bored and say, Mom, I want to do so and so and so and so. She'd go out and get me all the supplies, and then I would do that for a couple months or a couple weeks, and I'd come back. I'm like, Mom, I saw so and so, and I'm going to do this. Give me the supplies. And it just went on and on and on and on. But the creative spirit and the energy, I realized that early on. Like when I was in elementary school, I knew that I was creative. I knew that I had something. I just didn't know what it was. And I just would react to things. Because I'm a visual person. When I would see things, like when I would go shopping, if I saw something I like and I couldn't afford it, I would be inspired by that. And I would come home and I would try to duplicate it or do something that resembled whatever I saw. So I kind of started like that. So, I get to my teens, and we used to iron our clothes in the basement. And the staircase would be here, and the ironing board would be right above, on the side of the staircase. And my mom had this little jar button sitting there. So as I was ironing, the buttons used to hit me in the face. So it was almost like I was having a dialogue with the button. So I would open the jar, dump the stuff out, back and forth, back and forth. I did that for months. Then I said, maybe I could do something with the button. So I found a sweater, and I embellished the sweater. I had no idea what I was doing. I just said, let me just go for it. So I did it. I wore the sweater out to a club. Got a reaction. So then I did a vest. Same thing happened. I wore it out. Oh, like the sweater, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I moved to New York to sort of push the boundaries of my creativity. I felt like New York would have more to offer me. So I came here, and somebody introduced me to Harlem Week. And I go to Harlem Week and I see this big fashion show. So I'm sitting there with my friends and I'm like, next year I'm going to be in this. So, of course they laughed it off, whatever.
Wow.
So I bought all these Levi jackets and I started embellishing them with these buttons. So the very first jacket, I still have it. It might be around 35 years old. So I did the jacket, and we went to a concert that night at the Garden. We went to see Luther and Anita Baker. So as we're walking around the Garden, people kept stopping me saying, "Is that a Patrick Kelly jacket you have on? Is that a Patrick Kelly jacket on?" And at the time, I hadn't had a clue on who Patrick Kelly was. I was like, no, I was proud. This is Beau McCall jacket. I did this myself, whatever, right? So, long story short, a couple months later, it was an article in the Times talking about Patrick Kelly. So I read the article, and the story sort of paralleled to what I was doing. He was into black memorabilia, the black faces, the mammies, the watermelons. My whole kitchen is filled with watermelons, all types of watermelons all over my kitchen. Then he wore overalls. I had a pair of overalls that I had forever, that I embroidered and did all kind of crazy stuff. Same outfit, Converses. And then he wore this little biker hat that he flipped up. I had a little propeller on mine. So it's almost like it was a mirror image. It was like really eerie. So before I settled in New York, I came here to visit a friend. And I was intending on staying. So I went out to look for a job, and I saw the model Pat Cleveland coming down the street. So I saw her, so I was like, should I approach her or should I just let her go? So in my head, I'm saying, well, you might never see her again. So I called her, and she came over, and I told her that, I'm doing these sweaters with buttons and blah, 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 this and that. And, she complimented me, keep up the good work. But at the same time, I read this article years later that she had sent Patrick Kelly an anonymous ticket to go to Paris. So it's almost like we was doing the same thing at the same time. So people keep saying to me, they feel as though my work is influenced by his work. But I hadn't seen his work.
Wow.
And my work, to be honest with you, my mom influenced a lot of my work. And I say my mom because she taught me how to hem pants. She taught me like 3 stitches to how to hand sew. So a lot of stuff that I'm crafty. It will be hand sewn. And I can remember times when she would be on the phone. She could have did it herself, and she would give me a dress or a pair of pants, and she would say, just do this, this. I'll be right back. So she had her phone call, and I come back, and I would, I'll be finished. And she would say, see, I knew you could do it. Look how straight that is. Look how even that is. And then I realized that I could create something on my own, just hemming the pants. So that's where my influence came in. And then with buttons, when I go, I think I'm going home tomorrow. She always have a jar or a can of buttons waiting for me.
Are you kidding me?
She still scouts out for buttons for me. I talked to my sister yesterday, and it's a big bag of like maybe 20 or 30 plastic jars of buttons that my cousin found for me. So they all collect buttons for me. So it's my family, some of my close friends, even people I meet on the street. I have people rip buttons off of their clothes and give them to me.
What?
Yeah, so it's just the reason why I think I'm so attached to the button is it's a bazillion different kinds of buttons. So each project determines what type of buttons I'm going to use. So I never use the same buttons over and over again. So it's fascinating. Like I'm working on something now, but I'm only using the same button, which this time the button is clear. Clear buttons have they reflect a certain way against light. I can't tell you what it is, but it's yeah, it's a crystal clear button, and then it's a clear button that has like a little tint to it, so that gives it sort of a different kind of how it reflects the light. that's kind of boring because I'm just using the same button over and over again. They different sizes of clear buttons, but it's just a clear button. When I get into my serious stuff, my technique is 2 layers to give it a 3D effect. The bottom layer is the base. I call it the base layer, which the majority of all the buttons are uniform. They're all the same button. They could be all the same color, but it's sameness in size. And then the top layer is all the decorative buttons. That's when the fun comes in. That's the decorative buttons help me tell the story that I'm trying to tell within the button.
Talk about, I saw the, at the
Nordstrom.
Thank you. At the Nordstrom, I'll cut this, at the Nordstrom event, I saw the Daisy Duke shorts that you did.
Yeah.
What technique was used there?
Now see, now going back to the jacket and the sweater, when I initially did it, I had no technique. I had no idea in which direction I was going. So by the time I got to the jacket, it took me 6 months to do this jacket.
Wow.
Maybe a week shy of finishing the jacket, I found my technique.
Wow.
So I took it all apart.
What?
And I did it again.
So you must be like really...
I'm very particular about how the buttons fall, how the buttons lay, and the spaces that the buttons take up. So I did it again in a month and a half. It was 100% better, and I'm still using that technique today. Then I only work with 90% of the fabric that I use is denim, because some of the pieces go from maybe 5 pounds to maybe 500 pounds. Because I don't know if you saw the cloth bathtub that I did for Intozaki Shangate for Color Girls. So I did a whole complete real cast iron tub.
So what is the history on buttons? You have history on buttons or just...
Well, I got basic history.
Uh-huh.
When we go back in time, only royalty was allowed to wear buttons. Common people couldn't wear buttons. And then they had all these craft people to carve, mold, and create all these images and scenic motifs within a button. So they could be marble, they could be glass, they could be crystal, they could be a variety of materials. But common people, it was just stuff that you threw over the top of your head, like togas or kilts or something like that. Okay. So that was fascinating to me. And when you start really looking into the history of buttons, and you see some of the stuff, we had a store called Tender Buttons, and they had a lot of antique buttons, and something is like as big as your thumb to see all the detail that a person could get into a button. It was just fascinating to me, and it's still fascinating. Then I tell people about while I'm working, like when I get a new batch of buttons, I separate them by the material. So it's wood, it's bone, it's shell buttons like mother of pearl. There's metal buttons, there's plastic buttons. They all make their own distinctive sound. Like these are plastic buttons, so they sound like this. But I had on my shell buttons, they would have an entirely different sound. And then sometimes, like when I'm digging for the buttons, like I tried to get my mom to separate buttons with me before, and I was telling her, like, she was looking at plastic buttons, and then she was looking at plastic shirt buttons. But then you have shirt buttons that are fake to look like pearl buttons. So I was like, click them together. You know, you could hear the sound, and it'll tell you that it's plastic versus the shell, because the shell has like a higher kind of click to it. And for doing it so long, I could pick it up. Like leather buttons, they have like a muffled kind of sound, and then the metal, they got like a high pitch, like a hollow kind of sound. So it just comes from repetition. But I'm still really I'm still fascinated, and I'm with them, and I'm still in a space where I'm still trying to push the envelope Because a couple years ago, Solio curated this show called The Button Show, and we had 15 different button artists.
What?
Yes, and all 15 of us had all 15 unique different styles on how we utilized the button.
Wow.
So that was fascinating because when he first brought that to my attention, I kind of rebelled. I was like, people are going to see this and they're not going to differentiate the work. They're just going to see buttons. But then as he started selecting the work and I saw the work coming in, I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And what I try not to do with any art, I absorb it, but I don't want to attach it to my soul.
We talked about we talked about that earlier when I was talking to Jerome China today. Yeah, the whole idea of we are inspired, or we see things, but it's only to maybe tweak or maybe just expand on how we see.
Yeah, it's just going to enhance it a little bit. Yeah,
the medium,
right?
But not to
copy exactly, because
and reproduce the same thing.
It was some amazing stuff, and it just let me know there's more for me to explore with this little tiny little thing that we take for granted.
I'm amazed because this, I wish I was on the other side. Listen to this because I didn't know so much. So tell me, are you able to speak through the buttons, or is there through the medium? Is there something that you're able to say through this?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So talk to me about that.
Like with the tub, I was inspired by Intizaki's play Lady in Red #1.
Mm-hmm.
And within the poem, she talks about bathing in this concoction, and the concoction has like glitter and stars and diamonds and all this stuff within the poem. So I saw the PBS version of For Color Girls years ago. What stayed in my mind, Lynn Whitfield, she embraced the play. So she did it as a spoken word come across the screen. Can I tell you, she was oozing sex appeal. I could just see her walking across the screen. So when it came up and we went about selecting the poems, I already knew which poem I wanted. I wanted the one that she did. So I chose the poem, and I sat with it for a couple of days. I'm like, how am I going to execute this poem? So I read the poem a couple times. I watched the scene over and over and over again. And she, in the PBS version, she actually gets in the tub. So it just clicked. That's it. She's in the tub. I'm going to do a tub. So I went and got the tub, and I had not a clue on how to execute, how to really approach how I was going to put these buttons to this tub, right? And then you got all these young kids who work in Home Depot and all this stuff, and they was giving me all the wrong information. So I spent a month going back and forth trying to put holes through the tub, because my mind told me to drill holes in the tub and then sew the fabric to the tub and then sew the buttons to the fabric. I had never used a drill before, so I got a drill. They kept giving me the wrong bits. So it was taking me like 2 or 3 minutes to drill a hole through the tub. And I'm unable to start complaining the whole nine, whatever. So I go back again, and I'm like, it's a claw tub. It's a cast iron tub. So the old head, he was, I got just what you need. This is what you need. Take a couple of these, you're not going to come back.
Once you got the right tool.
So I got the tool. So, drilled about 200 holes through the tub. And I got some upholstery needles, about 1 foot long. And I sewed the fabric through the tub. Real neatly. That might have took maybe a week or so. Then when I started to apply the buttons to the outside of the tub, I usually like working with smaller buttons, because smaller buttons I can get more detail within that base button, because the base button is going to almost be like a sheet of fabric. The way I sew the buttons, I don't use glue. Everything's hand sewn. So I might have got a space about this big, and the button I was using was maybe about this big. So I'm like, this is gonna take forever. So I found a button about this big, white buttons, and then I had them dyed red. I call it lipstick red. I had them dyed a lipstick red, and then it took me about a month and a half to sew all these buttons on the outside of the tub. And the way the tub was, the size of the tub, I really didn't have to do a lot of math to align all the buttons up evenly. It just, for whatever reason, it fell together perfectly. Perfectly. So then when I got to the inside of the tub, I used the smaller buttons for the inside. Now getting back to what you asked me, the buttons are dictate and speak a part of the story. You know, it's what I choose to tell the story. So within that piece, I had moons, stars, I had glitter. Then I made a woman's silhouette within the tub. I had her breasts in there. I had her private parts in there. I had her arm resting on the tub. We did the show in Houston, and somebody did a review in Houston. I forget what the woman's name was, and she said something to the effect of, the show is titled For Color Girls, and I'm looking at Beau McCall's tub, and I see a white woman laying in his tub. If you look closely, the fabric that I chose to use for her body was floral prints, and the floral prints represented the vulnerability of a woman. The floral prints just happened to be light. It had nothing to do with race or complexion. It had to do with what she was trying to convey within the poem.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing within my visual, how I see it.
Your interpretation.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, took me off.
What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, it was one of those moments. But I was able to explain to her, and then she sent me a letter back apologizing for how she perceived it, because you never know how people perceive your work.
Yeah.
Once you put it out there, it's going to be a million different versions of how another person sees what you're presenting.
Yeah. Jerry Gann said almost something very similar to that. That you prepare and you create the art here, but then once you put it out there, in the light, it turns into something else for those other eyes.
Yeah, because the universe, you don't know how it's going to pick it up. And it's, most of the time it's positive, but then, sometimes you get a little static and you have to sit and, if you have a chance.
A little static.
You can sit and sort of have a conversation with whoever's viewing it to get your view.
Right.
But I don't really try to change
right. That's
how they see it.
Right. Well, how is your spirituality tie into your creating and your this? How do you connect it, or where is that?
This is like when I'm approaching an exhibition, and we have a theme, a title, and then it starts there. For instance, I did a record disc, the little yellow thing that goes in 45. So I got one about 60 by 60. It's inspired by the Staple Singers' We the People song. And getting back to the buttons helping me tell the story, all the buttons for that were protest buttons, were buttons of celebration, like I had cakes, balloons, dancing shoes, music. I had musical notes, musical instruments. I even had, I found this black man playing a banjo. So that's a part of the story. So it's titled World Spinning on the 45. So it was really about how music brings people together. It had nothing to do with color, nothing to do with
got
race,
it.
nothing to do with culture. When you hear a beat,
It's
you react
universal.
to it. Yeah. So that's where the spirituality comes in. And then as I'm working, I know what buttons that I'm going to use, but I may not specifically know where they're going to be placed.
You mean tell me so there's some guidance there that comes
Yeah.
that you can't understand?
Yes, 'cause
that it's like
it just takes over my hands
Right.
because I'm trying to fill these spaces up. And then if I look at it and I don't get the right energy, then I take it out.
wow,
And then I do it again.
good stuff.
And then I can feel it. And I'm like, that's it. That goes right there. And then sometimes I can get halfway through something. I can hold it up and it don't vibe. I'm not feeling it. Snip it out. This is why I don't use glue. Glue is permanent. I'm best with a needle and thread because I can manipulate the button. I can wherever I want it to go. That glue, once it's down, it's done. And then it's messy. That's a bad word. That's a bad word in my world.
Excellent stuff. I mean, the creativity. I just love your. I love the logo. Your yellow button, the big yellow button.
Oh, and see, that's another mistake. I call it my beautiful mistake.
Right.
When the first round of buttons I got, they was about maybe the size of a silver dollar. They were black and red. Okay, that's fine. It's just it didn't pop. So when I did it again, they was supposed to be black with the yellow undertones and the same size. So when I got them back, they came back in the mail. I seen this large yellow cookie. I was like, what the hell is this? This is not what I wanted. So I sat with it for a while, and then when I looked at it, I said, this looks like a smiley face. And then I just said, you know what? I'm going with this. Because my work, it makes people happy.
Yeah, but that logo is hot. When I saw that logo, I was like,
And it's memorable.
it's ingenious. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, whoa, that's cool. I was like, that's so cool.
So, over the years, I always call them my beautiful mistakes. Like with the Triple T,
Mm-hmm.
I did the Triple T about at least 15 years ago.
Wow.
I'm big on T-shirts. I have a huge T-shirt collection. Before I get rid of anything, I try to figure out if I could give it another life. I had 2 P-Funk shirts. Just on a whim, I just sewed them together. That was it. I walked around, nothing happened. And about a year or two later, I went to see P-Funk at B.B. King's. Bought another shirt. I said, I'm going to add this to the shirts. So when I added it to the shirts, I said, I think I got something here. And I played around in it.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I started playing with it, and I started wearing it different ways, and I was out.
Those are hot.
These going to work.
Those
So
are hot.
I just started, from there, I just started making them for myself. So maybe about 2-3 years ago, Solio was like, "What? You got all these T-shirts. What you gonna do with them?"
That's how I like it too.
And a little New York apartment or whatever. I got stuff everywhere. So
That's how I like it.
I started creating the shirts, but then I started making these narratives and these stories within the shirt. Like I'm just not putting 3 shirts together.
So you got narratives with the shirts?
Yeah, all the shirts got a story to them.
Man.
I got my like what you saw at Nordstrom's. That was my Freedom Fighter collection.
Mm-hmm.
So I got sports. I got socially conscious.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I remember seeing some
Yeah.
faces on there, right?
I got
That's
superheroes.
awesome, dude.
I got all these different categories where I break them down. And
That's awesome.
before I let them go, like I got shirts that I sat on for maybe a year or 2 until I could find a shirt to complete it.
Right.
Like last year,
That's
my sister's birthday is Monday. And I had a shirt for her last year, but I didn't have the 3rd shirt to complete it. So I found a nice Aries, really distinctive ram for the first one. and then the second one was said something about happy, you have the best birthday or whatever. And on a whim, I googled 23, and the shirt that came up with Queens are born on the 23rd of March. So that's her. So
Sienna Robinson would say, "That's God."
Yeah. So a lot of stuff I just fall into, and a lot of times I just think that my aunt passed a couple years ago, and when I was a kid, she used to do a lot of projects with me.
Mm-hmm.
We used to make jewelry out of bones, like chicken bones, spare ribs, whatever we would eat. We would save the bones, and we would make jewelry out of them, shellac the stuff, and put it in the oven, and all this kind of stuff. And she used to always say to me as a kid,
what about repurposing?
yeah, she said, you're always going to be creative. It's up to you what you're going to do with it or not.
Wow, what a word.
And, she's always in my head. Always in my head. We did a lot of stuff. This was I wasn't even a teenager yet.
Talk to me about, you've been doing this for a while. But share with people how it's so important to follow that gut instinct, that intuitive instinct, that is not necessarily always something that culture tells you or culture directs you to, and it's usually your development of your own artistry.
Well, let me put it to you like this. I got two brothers. I'm the oldest. Both of my brothers are very athletic. I didn't get none of that. And I knew that early on. I knew that early on. I was very aware of that early on that
that wasn't your lane.
That wasn't for me. It was not going to happen. And again, I acknowledged the fact that I had some kind of creative spark. So I just went with the flow. I just and I adapted well to it. And then my mother is creative in her way. She likes to decorate. She likes to stage things, and she likes color. Like when we was growing up, again, we lived in the projects, but we didn't have a typical project apartment. We didn't have the typical black scene. I can't call the name of this leather chair that we had. We had an orange sofa, and we had this loud, I think the sofa was orange and all these flowers or whatever, and then we had this orange chair, and then we had this leather strap sofa, and all the furniture was modern. My mother didn't want none of that colonial, none of that Italian stuff. It was contemporary stuff. So that's what I was attracted to, because that's what she exposed me to. We had glass tables and all this stuff where nobody had that during that time. This was in the early 70s. And she exposed me to a lot of color. And then even my attire, my style, I would look at, if I saw a picture, and sometimes I would go to school and they would say, "Oh, you're not matching." And I was like, "No, this is one thing going on up here, and then it's another thing going on down here." Because if you look at a picture, right, all this is going on in the picture. So you got the sun, the moon, the stars over here, and then you got all this landscape and all this stuff. It's two different color palettes, but it's in the same frame.
Right.
So a match, according to me.
Right.
And even I can remember being in junior high school, and we, all the grades, you had a certain color. So twice we had yellow and brown. So of course all the boys was gonna be wearing brown pants and a yellow shirt. I wasn't wearing that because I didn't want to look like everybody else.
Right.
I had on some yellow pants.
Right.
And this brown printed shirt or whatever, and they was like, "Oh, here he comes." I'm like, "You got to mess everything up." No,
I'm fine.
No, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I want to be an individual. And then we went to Catholic school for elementary school, and I can remember one time when we was getting our pictures taken, everybody had blazers on. And a couple of our shots that me and my brother had, we got blazers on. But this one particular time, my mother had put sweaters on us. So when it came time for us to take the picture, the nun was like, "Oh, do you want to borrow somebody's jacket?" I was like, "No,
No, I want to wear my sweater.
I'm wearing my sweater. My mother said I could wear the sweater, and I'm wearing this sweater, and I was comfortable wearing that sweater." So it's sort of the creativity is my whole being.
Right.
Is what I look like. Is what I feel like. Is what I act like. It's just the energy that I connected to, and if you feel it, you should you should release it. Because a lot of times people sort of react to what others.
Yes.
I never had a problem with that. Like when I was in high school, I wasn't a dancer. But then when I found out, I attracted people by the way I dressed.
That's beautiful.
So
That's
I could
beautiful.
speak to them through that. I would get them to come to me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful what you're saying. Yeah, and you answered exactly my question.
And then I use that to my advantage. Like early on, I was a very shy person, and I had to figure out how I was going to communicate and connect to the world outside that apartment that I grew up in.
I'm just getting goose bumps because what I love about doing this series is that when I've spoken to like 500 artists, and the artists, you enrich me so because you pour into me and I get more information. But what I hear what you're saying, you're telling people you have to find a way to be authentic, and it's okay that you feel that you're different from culture, what people are telling you, but explore that, live it, expand on that.
Because even with that, like, the journey wasn't always easy.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
It was not always easy.
People think, see, again, to me, it's culture that always tells us that you go to school, you go to high school, you go to college, you get an apartment, you get a house, so you live your life.
It's not that simple.
Right.
So let me give you an example. When I finally went to public school, I was in the 6th grade. So I was still into my Catholic school realm of the tie, a sport jacket, slacks, my school shoes, the uniform thing. Like, it was like everything was this. So I get to public school and I see all this freedom. I'm like, oh, I'm about to let loose. So 6th grade,
Gonna be real now.
I'm sitting there now. They all doing their individual things. I'm still sitting there, but I'm loosening the tie and unbutton the sweater. But I'm like still poised. I'm still like this. So by the time I got to the 7th grade, hippies and all that kind of shit was out. I was like, oh, okay. So I just lost it. I was like, I'm not doing none of that kind of stuff. So my mom bought me. I saw this sheepskin coat in this store that was in our neighborhood. We used to call them the hippie store because it was around like the when they had the smoke shops, and it was just like hippies and shit would be in there, right? There wouldn't be a lot of black people in there, but I was fascinated with it. And then we had this store called the California Earthquake, which only had like rock star clothes, like David Bowie stuff and Mick Jagger and the platforms and all that kind of carrying on. It was a couple blocks down the street from. I was fascinated, like looking in the window. So anyway, I saw this coat, and my mom bought the coat, but it wasn't treated. It was like a Mongolian lamb, but the inside it was like they scalped the lamb and just made it into this coat, right? So it was fine till it start raining.
Oh yeah.
That coat smelled just like a stable of lambs or camels or something. So they used to tease me in school about that. But guess what? I did not care because I was able to
that
be
joint was
me.
fly, though. That joint was
It
fly.
was.
Yeah, and nobody else had that look.
No. Then I remember I went to a concert one night, and
That's funny.
this is the negative part of it. I go to a concert, and I'm waiting for the bus. So I had these platform Pro-Keds. I got like a 4-inch lift on them. And I found these knickers at the thrift shop. And then my Argyle socks. So I was doing like a retro look because the Pointer Sisters and Manhattan Transfer and Bette Miller and all that retro kind of music was out during the time. And then I grew up on jazz. My family, you came to our house, it was just jazz. If I went to hear like Motown and all that kind of stuff, I went to my neighbor's house. Just go across the hall. And I forget who we were going to see, but the bus too long. So I said, well, I'll just, walk to the bus come. And I got in this neighborhood that I wasn't supposed to be in. And the gravel they used to use for the parking lots?
Right.
They stoned the hell out of me. I just felt these pellets like pew, 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 pew. But guess what? I still was walking proud with my little outfit on. I didn't care. I didn't care. And then even in high school, I wore the platforms and all the rock star clothes. That's what I was into. But then my last year of high school, that's when disco hit. But prior to that, it was all about funk, P-Funk, Maxan, all the bands, Mandrill, Ohio Players, Earth, Wind, Fire. It was all that stuff. So it was funky. But I still wanted to look like a rock star. I didn't, I wasn't doing the other stuff. And the guys that I went to school with, they were like, what in the hell you got on today? Like, what is this? I'm like, this is me. I'm just doing me.
Yeah, but
but they let me be me.
Right. And so, to come full circle, it has allowed you to do this work, which has separated you.
Yes.
And you didn't take a detour, or you may have, but we do know that you have built. And I wanted to share that because there are artists that have their stuff in them that has been birthed, and sometimes they fight it because they're like, oh well, nobody's doing that, or I don't see that, or I don't understand how it's gonna come together, or whatever they try to rationalize and justify in their mind.
Let me tell y'all what this is.
Yes, sir. There you go. So there's your camera right there. There's your camera.
It's style and it's fashion. The average person is fashionable. And when I say fashionable means you want to do anything that's comfortable. You're going to look good, you're going to smell good, but you're going to look like everybody else. Style, you're going to become an individual. And you're going to create your own look, your own vibe, your own steps, your own movement. And you follow yourself.
I'm done.
That's it. And most people can't handle style. Because when people say, oh, I want something different. You know what that means when they say different to me? I want the same thing everybody else got. I just want a different color.
I'm done.
Because they comfortable. Because everybody look the same.
I thought you said you wouldn't be able to do an interview well.
So I told you if you made me comfortable, what I was going to do.
Yeah. Just went in. That's it.
That's it. So I always been an individual. Even like my last year of high school, I got really conservative and I got really slick. They still didn't understand what I was doing. They still didn't get it.
You hear them saying they're not going to understand.
And I didn't care. I was just me.
And that's what you have to do.
The good part about this is my family let me be who I am.
Yes. Thank you. I thank you for adding that for both parents. That sometime you have an artist that is coming up and you can't understand. You don't get it. And you want to put them in what you were put into.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. You got to pull back. You got to let them be them. Let them be them. It won't destroy them.
Yes. One thing I can say about my parents is they never pit us against each other. They accepted each one of us, our individualities. And not one time did I ever hear my dad or my mom say to me, well, why don't you play football? Or why don't you play basketball? Like, they already knew I didn't want to do none of those things. And even if when my dad would take my brothers to the games and stuff, he never asked me.
Because you know where you were at.
He was like, he ain't going. No, I ain't want to go. So, but they embrace me and they just let me be the person that I am. And a lot of times, if you don't get it from home, it can cause a lot of confusion. Because when you get it later on, it's like, damn, I could have been doing this all along.
Yes. And there's anger and resentment there too.
Yeah, and then it's you don't wasted so much time.
Ooh, we don't want to go on.
You can't get it back.
Please don't.
So when you acknowledge it, go full steam with it.
Now you're talking to me.
You go full steam with it. And like when we saw you in Cuba, like when we travel, I travel to show up and show out.
Yeah, you certainly do. I didn't know that, but I know it now. That drink was fire.
Yeah, I mean, we had a good time. It's a bit of a culture shock.
Yes.
But after that, it was like, oh, I could do this. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to go back.
And in closing, talk about the difference, because that was actually one of the questions I have for you. Talk about the different, how you saw the artistry there in Cuba versus the artistry here.
To me, I can't say that I really saw a difference. Mm. We bought a lot of street art, mm-hmm. and there was a lot of blackness in all the art that I saw. Even the people, just hearing about Cuba and experiencing it was two different things. Because the people were very embracing. They were very open, very receptive to us. As far as the art was concerned, I saw myself in the art.
Ooh, wow.
I could relate to the art.
Cool.
Because again, art, you don't need words to speak with art.
Yes.
And what they were doing spoke to me.
I saw, to me, it was that, to me, they work harder at the art because they have less materials or they have less resources. So it seemed to me that they really just apply themselves more.
Yeah, because
you wanted to add to that?
The artists that I met on the street, they were very serious.
Yeah. So I guess you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a joke.
Yeah. It wasn't like they were.
No, it wasn't like, oh, well, you be back tomorrow. It was like, no, it was breaking down, telling us about the pictures and the paintings and whatever. And it was very, very serious. Like, it was coming from another level of creativity. Because, again, a lot of things we take for granted, like going back to the button. It's something as simple as a button. Right. We just like,
that's. I mean, like I'm listening to. I mean, I have to do some more research. I want to see Glenn Whitfield. I like to see that and see what was happening with that. But
yeah, Google it. It's on YouTube. It's really interesting.
Beau, thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't. We don't shake people's hands. We don't know what to do.
No.
We came in here with masks and I'm like, yo, you cool? You cool? Yeah, let's talk. But yeah, because I have a lot of footage of you. I have footage. I just don't have the way to put it out.
Okay.
And but I wanted to bring you in because I think the work is special, and a lot of stuff that you told me. Because like the first 15 minutes of this interview, I'm just looking at you like, really. So, and that's what I say. You the artist informed me, so I appreciate it. I appreciate you came down. You were like virtual. I was like, oh no, this guy is one of these two. That's it. And I had already said in my head, all right, if you want to do it virtual. But I'm so glad you came down.
I know I want to come down.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But one more thing. I'm doing something with Newark Express.
Okay, good. That's good. You should.
I'm doing a photo album book, which is based on all my friends that I lost early on.
Ooh.
So it's based on this photo album that I had that, I would go back and forth with the photo album. And people just started evaporating. And when the project came up, I know what I wanted to do. And I went back to the book again. I was like, this would be a good time to pay homage to these people in this book. So it's based on friendships and relationships. Because I think it's 8 or 10 people that I've lost in maybe the last 20 years. People that I thought that I was going to grow old with, and we were going to sit around and talk shit about each other for the rest of our life. It didn't happen. It's like 2 of us left. And the day before we started the project, my closest friend died the day before. So it was really, really, really emotional getting through it. And then I used the actual pictures that was in my photo album. So that should be dropping sometime before the year is out.
Congratulations.
We're still editing.
That sounds like...
And it's button collages.
I can't. That's what I'm saying. It just sounds powerful. It sounds powerful.
So yeah. So I'm glad I came down and did this face to face. And
where can they find you?
Y'all can find me on Instagram, Beau _McCall. You can find me on Facebook, BE_AU.
The triple T-shirts are fire. I mean, your other work is fire too, but the triple T-shirts, again, it's style, because even those T-shirts you can add with your own stuff, and it just takes you to a different place. So, what? What? What?
Linda Street just got one, a Jerry Gant one. Yeah.
Continued success, man.
Thank you so much.
Peace, we out, y'all.
Peace.